Hello and welcome, curious minds. You've just stepped into another chapter of the world's weirdest true history. This is History and the real vampire panic. When entire villages believed the dead were coming back to feed long before vampires became glittery lovers in modern fiction, they were terrifying, very real monsters. Not just in the minds of peasants, but in the very laws, rituals, and actions of entire European communities. Forget folklore. In the 18th century, people dug up graves, staked corpses through the heart, and even burned the dead, all because they believed vampires were real and killing them one by one. But how did this vampire hysteria begin? And why were so many convinced that the dead were coming back to feed on the living? Let's go back to a small village in Eastern Europe. Sometime in the late 1700s, a man dies. But the village doesn't sleep. A seemingly ordinary man passed away. No foul play, no strange illness. He was buried with the usual village rituals, but just days after his funeral, a chilling pattern began. Villagers started dying, one after another. First, it was an elderly woman, then a teenage boy, then a newborn, all with no clear explanation. Whispers spread like wildfire. He's not really dead. He's feeding on us at night. He's become a vampire. The people were terrified. Many claimed they saw him in dreams, standing at the edge of their beds. Others swore they heard footsteps near the cemetery at night. Eventually, they couldn't take it anymore. Digging up the truth, or the horror. Led by the village elders and a local priest, they dug up his grave. What they found made their blood run cold. The corpse looked fresh, as if still alive. Reddish fluid stained his mouth. His fingernails appeared longer. His skin wasn't rotting. It looked pink. To them, this wasn't a normal body. It was a monster in disguise. In a panic, they drove a wooden stake through the chest, decapitated him, and burned the remains. They believed they had destroyed the vampire. And for a while, the deaths did stop. But this wasn't an isolated case. The vampire epidemic of 18th century Europe, from Serbia to Hungary, Poland to Austria, vampire hysteria swept across rural communities like wildfire between the 1600s and 1800s. It got so serious that royal officials and even Habsburg emperors sent investigators to understand what was going on. Bodies were being exhumed in the hundreds. Villagers were performing rituals to neutralize the undead, and detailed reports described the exact appearance of vampire corpses. One famous case from 1726 involved a Serbian peasant named Peter, who allegedly returned from the dead and attacked his own family. Officials ordered his body exhumed, and when they found fresh blood at his lips, they staked and burned him. In another instance, Arnold Pale, a soldier who claimed to be attacked by a vampire during war, died, only for his neighbors to later claim he returned. His grave was opened, and the same signs were reported. Science steps in. The vampire illusion today, we look back and ask, were these people delusional, superstitious? Maybe, but there's a deeper truth. What they described had real biological explanations. Blood from the mouth. That's not feeding. It's decomposition. As bodies break down, gases build and force internal fluids to leak, often through the mouth and nose. It looks like fresh blood, but it's just a mix of fluids. Pinkish skin. In cold soil, decomposition slows. The gases can also bloat the skin and give it a rosy tint. Combined with lack of rot, it gives the illusion that the corpse is long nails and hair, a myth. The skin shrinks as it dries, revealing more of the nail and hair, making them look longer. No smell of rot. Cold weather can preserve bodies remarkably well. especially in shallow graves. And back then, people had no understanding of microbes or true decay. When disease became the monster, sometimes the vampire wasn't dead. It was living among them. In areas hit by tuberculosis, entire families would fall ill, wasting away day by day. Victims would grow pale, cough blood, become weak and thin, seem like the life was slowly being drained. Villagers saw this as the work of a vampire. Someone in the family was feeding on the others. They would dig up recently deceased relatives, searching for signs of vampirism. In their desperation, they believed that killing the corpse would save the living. This wasn't madness. It was fear plus lack of science. How the vampire became a legend from these terrifying real-life rituals and misinterpreted natural processes, the modern vampire myth was born. Writers like Bram Stoker, who created Dracula, drew heavily from these reports and Eastern European folklore. Stoker's monster wasn't just a fantasy. He was inspired by centuries of real fear, real corpses, and real fires lighting up cemeteries. Even terms like undead and vampire traits, sleeping in coffins, avoiding sunlight, feeding on blood, all trace back to the vampire panics of pre-scientific Europe. It wasn't Hollywood, it was history. The real horror of this story isn't a fanged monster flying through the night. It's this. People were so afraid of what they couldn't explain, they mutilated the dead, and sometimes even the living. With no access to medicine, no understanding of infection or decay, and surrounded by death, people turned to the only explanation they had: evil from beyond the grave. They didn't want to kill, they wanted to survive. Conclusion: fear dressed as legend. So, are vampires real? Not in the way pop culture imagines, but the belief in vampires was very real. It shaped laws, inspired books, and led to hundreds of real-life grave openings and Vampires are not just stories. They are symbols of our fear of death, disease, and the unknown. And in a world without science, that fear becomes flesh.